Hi everybody, this is the Baseball Hut, the amazing, spectacular, terrific, the great one, the People's Champion. Your host on, welcome back to the Baseball Hut, and hopefully you like this video. And hit that subscribe button. As you know, the Mets are done. They've been done for a week. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of changes already. They got rid of the entire coaching staff this past Friday. They got rid of everybody. Hefner's gone. Eric Chavez is gone. Barnes is gone. They're all gone. John Gibbons is out of here. Glenn Sherlock retired. So they put Mendoza on notice that he will be next. That they don't turn this thing around next year. And I had said this a few times now. It's a real danger having him here. If the Mets get off to a slow start next year, I expect the Mets to be good next year with this group. Whoever's gone, I expect them to have players that are good here to take over. So I expect the Mets to be good next year, just based on the fact that they won excellence here, even though things fell apart. So the Mets have to be very smart about who they want to have in case shit happens. Because a lot of times when things go wrong, they go wrong. And the Mets have to think long and hard about who they want to have in place if there's a problem with this team, say June 1st, and they have 5 games under 500. And people are screaming about Mendoza. Okay? So Mets better be smart about that in terms of who they have in the organization. Right now, there are a couple of guys they've been hearing different things about. Andy Green, who managed. He's in the Met front office. And he was with the Padres for a long time. And, of course, can't forget about Carlos Beltran, who had a chance to be the manager back in 2020, but that didn't work out. Obviously, we know what happened there. But they have to get some more people in here just in case. Maybe the new bench coach was a former manager. Maybe the third base coach could be who's been a manager somewhere else. So just the Mets have to keep that in mind. Don't bring somebody in that has some experience or quite a bit of experience as a manager. Just in case there's a problem with Mendoza. Just keep that in mind. And I thought that getting rid of Hefner was so important because he's been here so long. That sends a signal. And it's funny, the media have been complaining the Mets need to make some changes. And then some people may say, oh, no, don't do anything. Don't do anything drastic. No, you had to do something drastic here. Because when we've seen these historic collapses, the teams that go through this, they don't make moves. They make cosmetic moves. The 1964 Phillies made 0 moves from one year to the next. That's a very famous collapse. Prior to 2007, they didn't make any moves. And they had the same team, and they completely sort of fell down the toilet over the next few years. I have sort of an idea. Well, I don't want to get into that. But anyway, so the Mets have to be very smart about what they do going into next year. It can't be just bringing in talent, which we know they're going to do. But you also have to figure out who you want to get out of here to change the makeup of the clubhouse. Clubhouse chemistry is very important, and you got to know who's going to be a guy that's going to stand up and take the bull by the reins here. It doesn't seem like anybody's doing that. Even with Francisco Lindor, it doesn't seem like he did enough of a job to do that. But anyway, let's talk about Pete Alonso. And one guy that was part of a collapse, a couple of collapses, Jose Reyes. And he had something interesting to say about Pete. Now, Jose had left after 2011 because the Mets, for whatever reason, didn't trade him at the deadline and held on to him and then resigned. If you're not going to resign him, one of the stupider things that Sandy Olson did is he held on to him, could have gotten a lot for him, and didn't move him, and then got nothing for him but Kevin Plawecki as a sandwich pick. Stupid idiot. But anyway, that's a separate issue. There's a headline from SI.com. Mets legend says Pete Alonso needs to stay with the franchise. Jose Reyes can't envision seeing Pete Alonso in a different uniform. Now, I thought it was interesting, and I always love Jose. Is whenever he comes on, he's always sort of dressed in he's 40-something years old. He's dressed like a rapper. I know he's a rapper, but I thought it was funny when they made him wear a tie. That was pretty, or a shirt with a collar. I thought that was funny. In the SNY studio. The offseason hasn't officially begun yet. Yes, it has for everybody else, but it's going to be happening for the Yankees pretty soon, I'll tell you that. But this former New York Mets player is already making the case for Pete Alonso to be a Met for life. During Thursday's episode of Baseball Night in New York on SNY, Met legend Jose Reyes shared his thoughts on Alonso's impending free agency. Let's see what he has to say. I think Alonso needs to finish his career here in New York, Reyes said. They need to find a way to sign Pete because, like I said, he plays every single day he does. He doesn't miss any games. 160, 162. He hits almost 40 home runs, 100 RBIs. Who's going to do that? Who do they got right now who could put up that number? Nobody. Well, the guy in right field. The guy in right field could do it. But even with all that offense, they didn't make it because the pitching just wasn't enough. And there's something missing in that clubhouse. After New York saw their season come to a stunning end on Sunday against the Marlins, Alonso announced that he will opt out of the 2-year, $54 million contract he signed last offseason. The Slugger will undoubtedly be looking for a much bigger payday after having a great season at the plate. Now, he did not announce it. He was asked. He said, I'm going to opt out. It wasn't like a big announcement. It was like trumpets playing, nothing like that. Reyes made it clear that Alonso has to finish his career in Flushing, citing his ability to not only play every day, also provide a ton of power at the dish. Not only did the Polar Bear appear in every game of the regular season for the second year in a row, but Alonso was able to bounce back in 2025 after a disappointing 2024 campaign by his standards. The 30-year-old batted .272 with 38 home runs, 126 RBIs, which was 5 less than his record with the Mets. Alonso's season was also marked by him making franchise history as he surpassed Darryl Strawberry for the most home runs on August 12th against the Atlanta Braves. He now has 264 career home runs in just 7 years in the major leagues. Now, as an aside, as a trivia question, I was curious on my own. When was the last home run Darryl Strawberry hit for the Mets when he was with the Mets in 1990? That came, I believe, on September 12th, September 13th, against Hall of Famer Greg Maddux in Wrigley Field. So that's the last home run Darryl ever hit. I was curious, and I mentioned it here and there. I wanted to keep mentioning that. I researched that myself. Mets are heading into an offseason marked by uncertainty, having missed the playoffs for the 7th time in 9 years. Alonso's name is also expected to be swirled across the league about what his future may look like. While Alonso's future with the Mets remains unclear, Reyes can't see the first baseman anywhere else other than in Flushing. Given the power, durability, and clubhouse leadership that the Polar Bear brings, it's not hard to see why a franchise icon like Reyes believes that the Mets should do everything in their power to keep Alonso for the rest of his career. Now, all the same teams you're going to hear that were rumored to sign him last year, you're going to hear them again. The Yankees, the Boston Red Sox, a new one. The Cubs, the Brewers, none of those teams are going to sign him. If they didn't sign him off of a bad year, and every team's about the defensive metrics, then none of those teams are going to sign him. So I think there's probably a good possibility he's going to come back. I could see the Mets walking away from it, but I don't think it's going to be drawn out like last year. I don't think it's going to take as long for both sides. I think both sides are going to want to get over with, especially the Mets have a lot of work to do with this group. And they need to bring in people that are winning players, that are tough players, and they need to divest some of the players that are here. And it's a lot of work. You want the first baseman to be hanging over this situation, and there's nobody better on the market. Josh Naylor's, he's no good. He's not as good as Pete, You can put Eugenio Suarez there at first? I don't know. You put Juan Soto first? That's a possibility. You could do that. A Prodigy brought that up to me a couple of days ago. And maybe you bring in a right field. Maybe you sign Kyle Tucker. I mean, that's a guy you could do. Any number of things. The Mets always have possibilities, endless possibilities. And, of course, the Mets need to bring in a big starting pitcher, and at least maybe two. A big starter and somebody who will give you length into that rotation, because this team just doesn't have guys that go deep in the games, and you gotta do something about that. And the best thing you can do is just send them down the trough, further down the trough. It's the best way to describe that. If you have Framber Valdez in your rotation, maybe don't rely so heavily on Sean Manaea, and he can just be himself. He doesn't have to be an ace. You know, or the same thing with Clay Holmes. You put him down further down the line. He doesn't have to be an ace. And you take a lot of pressure off of Nolan McLean, Brandon Sproat, and Jonah Tom. Who the last two players, I think, Sproat and Tom are going to be, it could be good pitchers, but they need some more work. They're just not ready for the major leagues. And Nolan McLean, he's there, but he needs, you know, he's got a lot of inexperience. It's difficult. There's guys with no experience to do what they did. And you saw the inexperience with Tom. You certainly saw that. An experience at the lack of maturity. You know, I'm not saying that in a negative way, but the lack of experience is a big thing. You saw it. I saw it. Well, let me know what you think about this video about Pete Alonso and all the other things I talked about in this video. A lot of things chopped into this small little video for you. And of course, I'm on Facebook. And of course, thank you for watching. Hit the subscribe button on YouTube. Thank you, and I'll see you later.